Depot devoid.
Depot Divide!
Depot devoid.
All right, Ted. You are Ted Fagan, and this is Depot Devoid.
No, I am Geppetto, and I am the puppet master now.
You dare to think that you, Ted Fagan, are the puppet master? That is a pretty darn serious claim for you to be making.
Well, I don't know, Matt. You might be the paper mache mask master, but I don't see any strings on these puppets.
There are indeed no strings attached. So, Ted, I have to ask, how was your week, and what is the most exciting way in which watching Puppet Master improved your week?
Well, my week has been just jolly and dandy and fine. I don't know that Puppet Master really improved my week. I'm pretty sure that this movie, somebody probably brought all the ingredients to the table to make a nice, good movie, and somebody took half of them, threw them into the garbage, and somebody was like, "Look, it's fine, let's cook." And then they continued on with their cooking of this movie, and they're like, "Oh, how long do I bake it? I don't know. I don't know how many pieces and parts I have, and I don't know what temperature to set the oven at." And they let it go for a while, and then they pulled it out and they're like, "Yeah, it looks good and done to me." And then they set it on the counter, and they're like, "Hey, guys, guess what? It's ready whenever you are." And it's been sitting there until I consumed it on Sunday. And I think that this movie gave me food poisoning.
Oh,
It was in the danger zone for too long, Matt.
It was not held at a safe temperature, Ted.
No, it was not.
So we are here on Depot Devoid to talk about the 1989 horror movie Puppet Master, produced by Charles Band, directed by, I want to say, like, David Schmoller. Um, it's a Charles Band movie, because Charles Band had been a producer of sci-fi and horror films for some time, but this is really the launching of his brand, with Full Moon Entertainment, Puppet Master, and the subsequent franchise that it became, um, were the flagship films of the Full Moon Video brand, which at this point was partnered with Paramount. But they were not making theatrical films. This was like right in the great boom time for the home video market. And Charles Band like really knew how to pump out a bunch of relatively cheap, marketable genre films, and create a recognizable brand. But Puppet Master, as sort of the first part of that, has a slightly different vibe and kind of takes itself pretty seriously, for a movie about murderous puppets.
Was it actually the first full moon video?
I believe it was the first one to carry that brand.
Okay.
I could be wrong. If it's not the first, it is among the very first. It's definitely the first one to have the full moon video zone, which we will talk about later.
And I mean, I might talk some mad shit about this movie because it did give me food poisoning, but I do love Full Moon Video regardless of that.
That's fair. But had you never seen Puppet Master? Is that correct?
I'm fairly sure that I did see this back in 1989, maybe 90, when Ian and I were living in the Grand with Mom. She had a job off and on at Stop and Go Video. And
Was it Snack and Go?
Yes, Stop and Go was a store the other way down the street. Snack and Go was the video.
Yes.
Uh, and
I'm weird that I remember that.
it's pretty good. When you walked in the front door of that video store, there was a rack of shelves of various movies and or video games. It was the bleed over section between the left, which is the video games, and the right, which is the movies. And the center rack there, if you had a keen enough eye, you would see actually was a sliding door that would roll over the movies to the right, and that would go into the break room and the bathroom for the employees, also where all the shelves of the screener tapes were at. And
Ooh, screeners. I love screeners.
we watched ourselves a lot of screeners, and it was great. Don't pay to rent, watch the bad. Here comes Full Moon Video. That's what we had.
Full Moon was a pretty fun company. I think that there was a tendency as the brand became more established for the movies themselves in tone to not take themselves very seriously. Puppet Master, it had been a really long time since I saw this movie. I've watched various Puppet Master sequels off and on. I watch other things from the Full Moon catalog. You currently have all my DVDs from Full Moon, so you know how thick my Full Moon collection is.
It's good.
Um, it's got some really good stuff. Um, but the first Puppet Master I hadn't revisited for many years, and I had forgotten the vibe of this movie, which was really like trying to be something a little different. It wasn't like it's dumb, but it was interesting to see what it was like when they weren't sure what they were yet. But this is a movie that was released into a world that already had at least two Chucky movies in it. Um, so in that respect, it looks a little uh less than.
Well, I've seen this and I've never seen any of the Chucky movies, so
They are better than this. At the very least, if you compared the very first Child's Play with the very first Puppet Master, Child's Play is a much better movie in basically all respects.
having never seen Child's Play, but having our mother explain the basic premise of it to me when I was 8 or 9 years old, I can tell you that the basic premise of leading into what Child's Play was had more plot than the entirety of this film did.
That is
And
probably
it
true.
never gave me food poisoning,
I have to
but I
ask
never
though,
ate it.
did you ask our mother to explain the plot of Child's Play to you, or did it just happen?
I think that I asked about it, uh, partially because I was curious as to whether or not I wanted to watch them because one of them was coming out. I don't know if it was the first or the second or the third. I don't know when they came out. But when I was 8 years old, I was scared of a Chucky. I
Uh,
was
if you
worried.
were if you were 8, it was probably right around when the third one was coming out. So yeah, there would already again it would have been around the time that this movie was here. So yeah, it was a world where at least two Chuckies already existed. Some of them are good.
I'd be hard pressed to believe that without being forced to watch it. And then would I think it's good?
Well, then I guess you'll be forced to watch it.
Oh.
You would not think all of them are good. I can promise you that.
Wait, was there a Chucky 5 in space?
Oh, no, not in space, but there are a hell of a lot more than you think there are.
I don't want to watch the Mark Hamill.
There are fewer Child's Play movie. There are fewer Chucky like feature films than there are Puppet Masters. Let's say that.
That sounds bad.
There's a lot of Puppet Masters. There are so many. There are more than I have in that folder full of Full Moon videos. There are more Puppet Masters than there are in there. I don't have every single one of them.
Do they go to space in number 10?
I in number 10, definitely not. As far as I know, they don't go to space, but I would not swear to it.
All right.
Oh man, I would watch Puppet Master go to space though. I would totally watch that. I obviously, I mean, I make no apologies for that. I would watch that. It's got to be better than the time Leprechaun went there.
Probably. But while we're talking about various different Star Wars characters sending themselves into dolls in space and whatnot, uh, let's look at this underbaked movie that really truly was oddly cute.
It's sort of charming, right?
No, I wouldn't go that far.
It's the I'm glad that they don't have talking puppets. I think that would have been a mistake. Uh, the occasional um wordless vocalizations that they make are just on the cusp of being too gross. But I like the quiet. I like them not talking to each other. I hope that they continue to always do that. But yeah, I like this movie, and it doesn't feel. I don't think that this movie viewed itself as the first film in a franchise when it was happening. That is one of its greatest strengths. It didn't feel like it was trying to create a world that it didn't really have the vision to create.
That's good because it didn't.
No, no, it is. I think it understood its own scale, and that was good. It is primarily all taking place in one location, the Bodega Bay Inn in California. There are a couple of sort of outside locations, but for the most part, like we're in one spot, and that's fine. It's very controllable. And they do not try to get too ambitious with the puppets, but they also have like I enjoy as a fan of special effects, even bad ones. Um, they use a variety of puppetry techniques. They've got some stop motion, they've got some rod puppets, they've got some traditional puppetry. There's a lot going on, and to achieve this very small scale special effects movie,
But
and it's
while we're
cute.
talking small scale and effects, that was an issue that they had throughout, especially with the small head, big hands boy. They did not stay consistent with scale.
No, no, they did not. But I have seen a lot worse. And I, in a movie like this, I'm obviously willing to forgive a little more than I would be if this were some big budget Hollywood film. I hope that never happens. I I would love to never see a big Hollywood remake of Puppet Master. Um, hmm, I
Starring Willem Dafoe.
as Andre Toulon or as Alex Whitaker.
Now I was thinking he might play the puppet with the knife and the hook hand.
Oh, interestingly, you'll meet a guy who gets his soul put into Blade in the prequel of Puppet Master 3. And you'll recognize him, and it makes sense that that's the guy that becomes the Blade puppet.
Okay.
It's do you remember the Chuck Norris Invasion USA?
I remember the cover of it and that the movie opens with him in the Florida swamps in a hovercraft or a hoverboat of something.
It's the bad guy from Invasion USA. You would a
Oh,
hundred
okay,
percent
yeah, I know that face.
yeah.
It's
He he
gross.
he becomes the Blade puppet.
I'm sorry to him or anyone who survived him. He was gross in the face.
Um, well, so let's talk about what actually happens in this movie, so we can kind of get the setting rolling. We start with a flashback in 1939 with venerable character actor William Hickey
I'm
as
sorry, he will forever be known as the oldest man who will not die in my mind. Ever.
you'll be relieved to know that he's dead now.
No, he's not.
And you willed it to happen, Ted. Thanks a lot.
No, I will Barker into dying, not this old man.
I Andre Toulon is played by a different actor in every movie, I believe, and if one of them was Bob Barker, I would be so happy.
Unfortunately, that probably never happened.
It did not, but I would love to see Bob Barker in that role for no reason at all. That would be beautiful.
Little
But no,
puppet, you want to reach into my pocket and get $100 bill?
I don't think any of the puppets would want to do that. I think they have more self-respect than that.
I would hope.
But no, instead of Bob Barker, we merely get venerable character actor William Hickey as Andre Toulon, uh, world's greatest puppeteer, and as we will eventually discover, alchemist. And
Which alchemy never shows up, just uses spooky hand techniques
no,
to turn the puppets alive.
as in this movie, uh, alchemy is apparently what they call reanimation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't quite understand what that was about. Um, it's a sort of transmutation, I guess. I mean, it's changing something to something else. It's alchemy adjacent.
They explain dick all in
No,
this
they
movie.
don't. Yeah.
It's embarrassing. They didn't bake it right. They threw the baby out before they even had the bathwater.
As it turns out, Puppet Master isn't the most well-researched film about the paranormal. And I, as someone who was really hoping to receive a useful education from Puppet Master, I find myself disappointed that the movie has left me wanting. But in many other respects, it was perfect. Yeah, so he's an alchemist, which means that he is able to bestow animation upon inanimate objects.
Using the ancient Egyptian rites that we never know about.
Right. Well, because if they gave them to us, then we would be able to use the secret, Ted, and that would be a really irresponsible thing for this movie to do. Uh, we clearly can't be trusted with this kind of power. Okay, so he he is a puppeteer in 1939, hiding out in the Bodega Bay Inn.
So the
Being
Nazis can get him.
Yes, he is being pursued by agents of the Third Reich because Hitler wants the secrets of reanimation that have been passed down by the ancient Egyptians and are currently residing only in the mind of Andre Toulon. So Andre Toulon hides his puppets in the wall and then kills himself, which is pretty responsible. You know, kudos to him, keeping it out of the hands of Der Fuhrer. He could do worse. And then we immediately fast forward 50 years. And at this point, we have a pretty traditional uh, montage of assembling the forces. Because what this movie is really about is a group of different specialists of paranormal investigative subcultures all coming together at the Bodega Bay Inn to unearth
Sure.
some terrible secrets.
The gathering montage is not impeccable. It's a whole
I
bunch of
defy you to
unconvincing.
explain anything that was problematic about this montage.
Okay, so the only thing that's really truly problematic about this montage, Matt, is that whoever wrote this had a low enough budget and a huge love of leeches that it's like, let's find leech spots. When can we stick them in?
We are going to get into the leech business when mainly when we meet the girl. Because I have some leech thoughts. there's a there's a leech theme that happens in this movie that I find it is the most irritating thing in this movie to me personally.
Because
But I
it's
don't want to
horny
spoil
in a weird way.
it. Okay, so the first thing we see in our gathering of the psychics montage is uh a vaguely well-known character actor, Paul Lamont, as Alex Whitaker, in his office, I guess, at Yale, where he's a professor. Um, and he has a dream, and it involves leeches all over his belly. And and he gasps. Because that's what he does, Ted. He dreams. And I know
That's an
that
anthropologist for you. If you didn't know, Matt, I got a degree in anthropology.
you might
I
think that
dream
every
too.
yeah, but not everybody dreams about the future, Ted. Not everybody dreams about things that are going to come to pass. He's way more special than us.
Hey, you know what? Maybe I do sometimes.
Have you ever had a dream about being covered in leeches and then it happened?
Uh, I am not a real big leech horn dog.
I don't think he was either.
They were getting him wet.
It's also kind of weird that he because that didn't even happen to oh, okay, anyway. um it was kind of boring. He had big hair. Then we meet Dana, who is a carnival psychic. Um, and I love her. She is a terrible character. She is she is every cliche about the carnival psychic kind of stereotype that you could ever possibly want. Right down to the southern accent and calling everybody sugar.
My favorite part about her is she can't even keep her accent as badly as freaking Kevin Costner can when he did uh that. Why can't I think of Robin Hood's name right now? That can't even keep the accent as bad as Costner in that.
I happily only saw that one time 1 million years ago. And I like to keep my memory of it vague.
The reasonable position.
I remember being singularly unimpressed. Yeah, so Dana is she's got a crystal ball and she does tarot, the whole deal. We meet her at the carnival, doing a reading on a young couple. The woman is played by Barbara Crampton, who was Megan Halsey in Reanimator, for those of you who love Reanimator as much as I do. And for some reason she's doing a tiny little cameo in this movie. If only she had played one of the actual characters, it would have been that much better. But no, and it's interesting because uh, Dana seems like like a very typical carnival psychic in that she is clearly phony. Like she is faking the reading and making up stuff as she goes along and changing it when she gets it wrong. She's exactly like John Edward or anyone else that you see as a TV psychic. And and then she has an actual psychic vision and it's completely different. So that was kind of odd. I guess she just like she it has the ability to utilize psychic powers. She just can't be arsed to do it when she's at work. But one by one, we're meeting them, and we find out as it goes along that these people all know each other. Um, we meet at a
The
lab.
worst people.
It's they're a very like they're a very weird couple. Um, Frank and Carissa, they're the sciency ones because they have a lab and a machine that goes ping and it's got lights and a subject who's hooked up to another machine. So they're with it. They are at the cutting edge
I
of
wish
psych.
they I wish they would have just stuck with the machine that goes ping.
Uh, they're doing some kind of mind reading thought projection experiment. Uh, they're
Which is
trying
also as made up and contrived as the freaking carnival thing. It's so bad.
they are trying to psychically experience their subject's sexual fantasy. Um, why? I don't know.
Frank was clearly getting it.
Well, yes. It seems that they were both supposed to be receiving it, but only he was, and he was pretty into it. Carissa wasn't getting it. Maybe because she was wearing glasses, which means obviously at the moment she was a sexually frustrated shrew. Because why else would you wear glasses? Come on. And while they're at the lab, they get a phone call from Alex, the guy with the leeches on his dream belly, and Frank says that they too were contacted by Neil Gallagher last night. So apparently, all of these people are experiencing psychic contact from someone that they all know, named Neil Gallagher. Um, and Frank says that it means that Gallagher located the old puppet master's hiding place, and he's calling for some kind of meeting. And Dana had called them too. Apparently, we're just going to get all of this exposition from Frank now, because he's the one that knows what's going on. Um, so that's how we find out that they all are in this together. Uh, and they are going to all converge on the Bodega Bay Inn, which careful viewers may remember was the location of a puppet hiding place in 1939.
Wow.
50 years ago, this very night.
Wow.
I don't know if it was this very night, but it was 50 years ago.
Or so they say. I believe that that happened in the present day, Matt, because that's what the screen told me.
So wait, you think that happened in 2024 because it used the words present day?
For me, that happened on Sunday. Sunday,
Well, then
2 days ago, my
how
son's birthday.
how do you explain everyone's hair?
It's coming back. Haven't you seen those mullets?
I texted your son on his birthday and said, "Happy birthday, fake Ian."
There you go.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot of plot happening right now. So we gotta kind of gotta get these people where they belong so we can start killing them off.
This is, in fact, the most plot that we get, and it's really thin.
Yes, this is all it's all very strange. So they all arrive at the Bodega Bay Inn, um, and they meet Megan and Teresa. Teresa works at the inn, and Megan is Neil Gallagher's wife, and none of them knew that she existed. And also, none of them knew that Neil was dead,
And he's hanging
which
out in a coffin and blah,
yeah,
blah, blah.
it was actually pretty funny. Like, they're like, she's like, "Oh, I thought you knew," and they just cut to the coffin, and it's like, "Oh, he's dead, and he's here. Um, he shot himself just like too long." Uh, and according to his widow, he left a note saying that he didn't want to be buried until the gang of psychics arrived. And oh, and then and then Frank and Carissa and Dana stay behind with the body for a minute while everybody else leaves.
Don't touch the body.
Don't touch them. That fucking Teresa, man. Um, she talks in a weird cartoon voice, and I was trying to figure out what it was reminding me of, and I finally realized she talks like the adult women who dub the voices of 10-year-old Japanese boys in old Godzilla movies when they're dubbed in English for TV.
Oh, don't touch the body.
No,
Huh?
it's more
What
like
do we got?
it's kind of it goes down into like this weird little register where
yeah, yeah, don't
it
touch
be
the
like
body.
a Bart Simpson kind of a
yeah, like basically like a woman being a 10-year-old boy.
Don't have a comment.
It's a very strange choice for her character. Yeah, she tells him not to touch the body, and then Dana immediately stabs him through the heart with a long pin, just to make sure that he's dead, which I guess if he wasn't before, he he is now. And and then they're shown to their rooms, because it's easier to pick horror movie characters off um when they're in their rooms.
But where were the other guests? Spooky.
Dana is using her hickory dragon's blood thing to smoke and smudge and cleanse the room, and Teresa's etheric body, which I guess is her aura or something, and tells her not to go near the fireplace, which I guess will be important later. And then when she leaves the room, Teresa spies through the keyhole and sees Dana unpack her dead stuffed dog from the suitcase, uh, which is really weird.
Hey, it was just more foreshadowing, Matt. Didn't you
Um,
see?
it is in fact a plot point later on. Um, it is an odd character choice and a little gross. That yeah, she is carrying around her dead dog Leroy.
Or
Uh,
Leroy.
Yeah. Um, Alex in his room is having visions of Neil Gallagher masked dancing with Megan and then telling Alex that he can't save her. Um, while being shown upstairs, Carissa has a vision in the elevator of Neil sexually assaulting some woman, which is,
Not a plot point.
yeah, not that doesn't come up at all. It's just apparently he is also a rapist, uh, which is I'm not sure why that character choice.
I don't know.
Uh,
She also decided that Clark Gable and somebody banged in their bed.
yeah,
What's
she
wrong?
gets yes, they when they get to the room, she gets all horny because one time Clark Gable and Carol Lombard fucked in that bed. That's her power, Ted.
All I'm gonna say is that's a real old ass mattress.
It maybe it works on just the frame too. Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. Um, if if the mattress hasn't been changed, that could be a problem. Because the inn hasn't been closed that long.
No, and really, there's probably a whole lot of other nasty things that happened on that bed. Why she only focused on Clark?
Maybe it just comes through the strongest because he's the most famous.
Yeah, we do need famous people for things.
It's
That's
we
why we
do.
have some partially famous people show up in sporadic bits in this movie for a really short cameo. That's about it.
Is that what you think?
No, that's about as close to fame as you can get with this movie, is all I'm saying.
Uh, at this point, we also meet another puppet. At this point, we have met um one Chinese puppet who was in the window in 1939, who we never see again. We have met Blade, who wears a black trench coat and a big hat and has one hand as a knife and another hand as a hook. And we have met the Jester, whose head splits into three sections and spins around. And sometimes his expression changes when his face goes back, which is really the most movement you get out of these puppets, with the exception of the one that I'm going to complain about a lot later. But at this point, we also meet Pinhead, who was in the coffin. And he crawls out with his great big human hands and his tiny little puppet Pinhead. And he doesn't do anything yet, but we know he's around now, because he will have a pretty big part later.
Yep.
And then we have dinner, and Dana makes everyone very uncomfortable.
With her coming and going accent.
But it is frequently strongest here. This is a pretty great bad scene. And Dana is just a bitch, which she acknowledges. But here we get some backstory. Megan talks about her family owning this hotel for a couple generations at least. That when they died, Neil helped her through some rough times. They seem to have some kind of relationship, but she was surprised, nevertheless, when he asked her to marry him and offered to help run the place. Dana immediately knows that this was strategy on Neil's part. And after they got married, they shut the hotel down to renovate. And according to Megan, he really tore it apart. She apparently never figured out that he was looking for something. But obviously, this entire process was about him trying to find Andre Toulon's hiding place, so he could find the puppets and unlock the secret of reanimating the inanimate, because Neil, as an alchemist, is obsessed with eternal life. Because that's what alchemy is about, Ted. It's not about the transubstantiation of metals. I don't care what you might have heard. It's about eternal life.
Hey, man, you got to find your eternal life wherever you can get it. These days, am I right? Cost of living.
Zing! Well, I guess we're going to have to take a break.
Yes, we will. But
And
we'll be
come
right back.
and have an amazing time.
Yes, with hopefully a little bit less food poisoning than we had in the first. But I'm not promising it.
We've got many sequels to go.
And you got a lot more lore in this than I got. I think it came after.
Oh, it gets so good. Just you wait.
Puppets, 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 puppets.
I don't think that our Southern girl would blame anyone for her bullshit. She is happily embracing all of the most negative aspects of her own personality.
Oh, I wasn't being her. I was just being general people from the South. Don't blame me, Southerners. I grew up with some. And they were very nasty. Not all of you. Just the ones I grew up with. My family.
They were all nasty.
My family.
Well, Dana is a stone cold bitch, so she'd fit right in. She makes a big scene at dinner, and her cruel behavior toward Megan causes Megan and Alex to bond even further. There's some character stuff. It's fine. Like, they make an effort to kind of create some interpersonal conflict and some developing friendships. It's not really all of that not all that interesting.
No, I mean, they fail miserably with it because none of it's actually pertinent to anything that happens in the rest of the movie. It's all a bunch of empty attempts to try and make it worthwhile.
They could have maybe gone somewhere with Alex and Megan, but it doesn't. I mean, nothing develops.
Well, and we didn't want that anyway.
No, and obviously most of these people are going to die. So these I seem the attempts at character development go nowhere in terms of making us feel more invested in the character deaths. Um, which is fine. This is an 80s horror movie, and many of them don't even make the effort.
But now we need to get into the real leech of the story.
um yeah, we are moving in that direction. So we uh, I like the puppets in this movie, in many of the sequels. They This franchise makes the right decision of introducing a new puppet in every movie, basically, but not overdoing it. And most of them feel like part of a cohesive collection. Uh, the ones that we have met so far in this movie, uh, the Chinese puppet, the Blade puppet, the Jester, Pinhead, the Tunneler, who we're just getting to know a little bit around this time. They are all carved from wood. They are all presumably made by hand by Andre Toulon in the 20s and 30s. And they feel like part of a collection of puppets that this weirdo might have made. And also, there's the leech woman. And I hate her.
All right. Well, we first got to get to the sex experiment that Frank and
Oh, are you talking about sexual experiment 517A?
yeah, which results in leech
Oh wait,
positivity.
can't talk about results until we acknowledge that it's going to utilize various aids and apparatuses, Ted. Not just aids, but also apparatuses.
Well, there were some apparatuses. If we want to, thingify leeches.
Yeah, I guess that the fact that Frank and Carissa's research seems to be largely psychosexual in nature is to provide some sort of organic excuse to have on-screen nudity in this movie. Um, it is perfunctory and a very strange choice, but there you have it.
But hey, it's necessary for the weird, nasty, dumb death scenes that they have where she ties him up on the bed and blindfolds him. They have some sex. Then the door opens and she hears something, and then she crawls under the bed and gets a drill in her face, which like really
Okay,
messed her up when you see her later.
yes, it's hilarious that he has no idea what's going on.
Her
I do.
hand, her bloody hand on the bed, spent way too much time grabbing and scratching the bed as she's really super dead underneath it.
Um, I have to say, leading up to this scene, uh, the sequence with the puppets in the hallway, it causes me an unnatural level of delight. There's this whole bit where we don't know that we're the puppet camp, like at puppet height, zipping around the hallway, little patter feet sounds are happening. We don't know which puppet we are yet. But the puppet, okay, we hear as an audience, we hear fucking going on somewhere. And it seems like the puppet is looking for the fucking, because that's what we hear in the hallway. The puppet's running around. It goes up to one of the doors, but can't see up to the keyhole. So it goes back around the corner where there's a chair, reaches out. We see a hook for a hand. So now we know that we're at the Blade puppet. Drags the chair over to the door and somewhat with some amount of difficulty, like climbs up onto the chair to peep through the keyhole, and we're in the wrong room. So he gets back down, drags the chair down the hall. It's, I don't know why. I find it so adorable that we get this whole sequence, and it's really about Blade having a fairly realistic level of ability and agility for a puppet of his size. And when he finds the right room, then we cut to him opening the door for Tunneler. Um, Wisely, they don't show us how the puppets actually open the door because that probably doesn't work. But I love that sequence. And then all this other stuff happens. Yes, she gets killed under the bed without screaming. Um, so he doesn't really, on top of the bed, tied up and blindfolded, doesn't know what's happening. And then we get the fucking leech woman who basically is a Barbie doll that barfs up leeches. Um,
The big guys.
Big fucking leeches. Yeah, she has to unhinge her jaw like a lizard or a snake to get these leeches out. But here, okay, there are a lot of things wrong with this. The first thing I'm going to point out is she is supposed to be a fucking puppet that Andre Toulon made more than 50 years ago. What the fuck is she made of? None of this makes sense. What was she? What did he carve her out of? And what did he carve? Because he creates these puppets and then he uses his abilities to magically imbue them with life using secret Egyptian technology. Whatever. So he carves the blade puppet. He gives it life. It has a blade and a hook, and it can do stuff with the blade and hook. He carves a puppet with a spinning drill bit for a head, and it can use a spinning drill bit the way you would use a spinning drill bit. What did he carve for the leech woman? Did he is there a leech in her? What is
There's
she?
at least 3.
I fucking hate it. It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. A leech is also not a deadly weapon. If anything, it's an act of medieval medicine. Like, what is the threat even? Is it that she's creepy? Because yeah, she is, but like it within the universe of this movie, nothing about the leech woman makes sense, and it just makes me mad. Ah!
Oh, man. See, I think you're having a problem like I do, where you're putting a little too much credit where credit isn't due. This is somebody who was horny about leeches and had an underbaked movie. Somebody is horny for leeches. Hence, they made this weird, fleshy puppet doll to puke leeches out onto a sex tied up boy to make a weird, creepy, sexy scene, which is not sexy and isn't really creepy. It's just gross. Why? Why? Don't ask why. They didn't know what they were doing. You're getting food poisoning from a movie.
Do you think that the actor who played Frank is secretly the writer of the movie?
I think that he's the writer of the leech scenes.
Do
I
you
think he
think
said, I want to get tied up and have leeches puked on me.
do you think that the writer's obsession with leeches predates all other parts of the story?
Well, here's a problem that I have with that, Matt. You've got more lore going into this than I do, because there's obviously some backtracking that happens in later movies where you know a little bit more than I do.
Yes, but I'm trying not to use any of that, and it's been a long time. I have a vague sense that in Puppet Master 3, they attempt to apply some band-aids to the leech woman backstory that tries to make it make a little bit more sense, but I don't like I have to watch it again before I could even tell you whether any of that works at all. But I don't think it's particularly satisfying. I think that basically the leech woman is a terrible idea that then they were stuck with because it became a franchise. So they kept using her. And unfortunately, if anything, that the backstory in the third one, whether or not it fails to satisfy on the leech front in terms of making that bullshit make sense, it does weave the character so far into the lore that you can't separate her. Like, she's too important. And that sucks because it's a dumb idea. And I say this as someone who really likes this movie. I know what it is. I know it's not a good movie by any stretch, but I really like it. But I really hate the leech one. I think my perspective was that they just felt that they needed to have someone at some point said we need a female puppet. They used those exact words. I am certain of it. And that they did not put any thought into how to fulfill that mandate. Someone just shit out the first idea and it became canon. And now it always will be.
That might be.
It is weak. It is the weakest thing in this movie, which has more than one weak part, Ted.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, later we do understand that Neil is dead, alive, puppetized, but we still there's still no reason in this movie at all ever presented why the puppets are killing for him. Why are they killing these people?
No, there is not. We get a couple of pieces of information that you can, maybe put on a chart and try to make sense of how these things work. But no, they do not think any of this through. They also don't. There's no explanation of why Neil has to kill himself,
Or why Neil is back alive.
right. He says that he did kill himself and used the puppet master's secrets to bring himself back to life. There's no explanation.
Seems to be something that you have to do,
but they
in
don't
the real world.
They don't say that. They just like say that this happened. They don't say how it happened or why it happened. The magic is like, you don't have to show me the magic working, but you have to give me some understanding of how it works or what the rules are so that I know what is going on. And they don't really do that. They don't explain why he has to die. At some point it becomes clear that he is the puppet master now, but really only when the puppets start to turn on him later do you really understand that relationship is even happening, because all of the revelations come out in the same scene.
Which I
Furthermore,
suppose we should probably get to.
yes, we do. Okay, well, also Megan, after a series of interlocking dream sequences, takes Alex upstairs and shows him she has found the puppet master's journal, in which we hear him muse that the puppets are harmless around him, but he fears what may happen if they were to fall into the wrong hands. Again, this is scant information to go on, but
Got to do a lot of inference to get from there to anywhere else.
Right. So they are, I guess, in some sense, underlings to him. He is the puppet master, after all, and I assume that term has greater implications in this relationship. That they don't really explain how mastery over the puppets would pass on after he was gone. So it's very unclear why Neil would be able to become the puppet master.
And he doesn't order them around to do anything. He just treats them like shit and makes them feel bad for the people that he's fucking up, which they were also just killing.
Assuming that he did, like, in retrospect, we can understand maybe that the people that have already died, Dana and Frank and Carissa, that he did in fact order those deaths. We don't see it happen in any way. But it because he admits eventually when he gives his villain speech at the end, like every person in a Scream movie who takes off the ghost face mask and gets all villainy, he talks about how he killed Megan's parents, and this was all his big plan all along. They were the first human experiments, so I guess it was all building to him reanimating himself to give himself eternal life. Apparently, you can't just become immortal. You have to die and then be resurrected. I guess.
But we also don't see the human experiments in them. We
No,
barely
at
see
all.
1 second of Teresa, who had been murdered with a fire poker, is not dead, and he's also alive somehow without any explanation of how he went from shot myself in the head to I'm also alive. We've got nothing to really
No.
go on here. There's
How did he
only
resurrect himself?
yeah.
Um, I do have. There's one thing I have to say real quick. Teresa's death is hilarious. Uh, she is in a room with a fireplace and a piano, and there's this very long, drawn out sequence that builds absolutely no suspense whatsoever before Pinhead picks up a fire poker and just bonks her on the head. But he bonks her on the side of the head that is facing away from the fireplace. And then we see that her death is signified on screen by a spray of blood hitting the logs that are in the fireplace. So it's like he just hit her like on the left side of the head, and there was just a blood burst out the right side of the head.
Matt, have you ever seen how the dinosaurs died? You know how the dinosaurs died?
Was it fire pokers?
No, but I mean, it can be explained in the exact same way here as the fire poker. So we've either got a giant comet or a giant asteroid comes hitting Earth, comes in and it hits the globe on this side here, whoosh, and then all the way on the other side of the Earth, as that wave of energy transfers through it, volcanoes explode on the other side. It's exactly the same thing.
Gotcha. That sounds
Science.
that's so plausible. I can't believe it. I do not agree with science, and I prefer to get all of my information from
Fox News.
television psychics.
That's better.
I will believe anything that Alex Whitaker tells me.
I don't know who he is.
He is the main character in this movie, Ted.
I thought you
problematic.
said television science, Matt, so I was thinking reality.
He has the hair of a television psychic. I believe that is where he will end up. Actually, he won't. He will end up in a crazy house. I believe they mentioned that in Puppet Master 2. But for the purposes of this movie, he lives happily ever after eventually when we get there.
Ish. I mean, how's his jaw doing after all those keep lifting him off the floor, punch in the face moves? Because I am stronger in death than I ever was in life now, Alex.
So much punching.
Bad punching. One-handed, lift, punch right, grin.
Good stuff. Real good stuff.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, and I won't take it back.
I'm not embarrassed at all. Yeah, so basically Neil planned this whole thing and has been using the puppets to off everyone because according to him, their minds are all connected. So since he found the puppet master's secret, they would all eventually have figured it out, and he wants it all for himself. And he makes a terrible mistake. Because he is ready to go on to further human experience, experiments, and he says that he is tired of playing with silly little wooden puppets, and he tosses Jester aside. And Ted, I don't think that was a very good idea.
It hurt some feelers.
And I think that was a bit of a turning point. Unfortunately, it was also really the point at which we realized that he was the puppet master because they're obviously they've reached a turning point. So I guess they were working for him before. At least that's the point where it became obvious to me.
Yeah, again, not a lot of actual communication of this on screen, but you gotta draw some inferences somewhere, and that's about all this movie is good for is you gotta sleuth out the clues. Except they're not very sneaky. They're just not well put forth by the actual script or actors or anything else in this underbaked, disgustingly horrible food poisoning causing movie that might get better later with other watchings and maybe backtracking and re-editing the story.
The film could have benefited from perhaps one or two further passes on the script.
And maybe not locking somebody in an elevator for 5.5 minutes where you obviously don't have any lock that's keeping anyone out while they cry from the outside for no reason about somebody who they don't like.
First of all, I love it was previously established when Dana was being murdered in the elevator. Uh, when they cut to Pinhead coming after her in the elevator is fucking gigantic. It's like 12.5 feet across. It's so huge when they need to have puppets in there. And so it was again the climax. Well, the climax insofar as the cathartic killing of the bad guy takes place entirely in the elevator. And yes, we we have long sequences of the puppets individually and together fucking up Neil Gallagher, intercut with shots of Alex on the outside of the elevator, sort of listlessly tapping on the barely latched cage door. And it sort of like, it's not actually at the level of Willy Wonka saying, no, don't stop. But he is very, not very assertive in his invocation of the puppets to stop murdering Neil Gallagher. Doesn't really seem like he intends it. Like maybe if he really wanted to stop them, he probably could have gotten that door open. Uh, he doesn't. He doesn't. They fuck him up pretty bad, and his blood is made of antifreeze.
I was assuming it was reanimator juice, but I mean, having been one who's only seen about 20 minutes of reanimator ever, I'm not sure.
That is a deep shame, Ted. Uh,
You
I
know
feel
where I stand.
that I'm going to tell you have to watch it, and therefore you will,
Yep.
because you do kind of have to watch it.
I know. I'm aware.
It's even better than Puppet Master 2.
I won't know until we get there, and then I'm probably just going to tell you you're wrong. But
I believe every single Puppet Master sequel contradicts the previous one. Um, they get more convoluted, and none of the dates are consistent, and it's increasingly silly.
at what point do we introduce midichlorians?
That may happen in the one that I haven't seen yet. They certainly wouldn't stoop that low as quickly as George Lucas did.
I was at work today. I was ragging on Kenny G, and saxophone music when somebody brought up Kenny D and torturing me by having to listen to it. Like, saxophone music is terrible. I hate saxophone music because a few different reasons. One, it's not a woodwind and it's not a brass instrument because we've got a reed and it's a brass. It's unacceptable. It's not a functional instrument. Just do away with it. This is what birthed elevator music. And somehow we ended up getting to one of my coworkers loading up a YouTube video with somebody who had produced a proper brass instrument piece to a saxophone so we could see what that would be like. And it very much sounded like farting automobiles, which is definitely better than the saxophone to begin with. And one of my coworkers said that it sounded quite a bit like the cantina music in Star Wars, to which I said, "Oh, jizz music," which is what George Lucas has classically coined what the music style is that happens in the cantina there on Tatooine. It's jizz music.
Of course it is.
Bit of a tangent, but I got us there. Full circle.
And scene. Well, we've essentially made it to the end of this movie, which is like honestly, it's I have always had a soft spot in my heart for horror movies with tiny monsters, which is what initially drew me to this before I knew anything about Charles Band or anybody in the movie. I just I like stuff with little killer puppets and dolls and little monsters. So I really dug this. It was clearly a low budget movie made by people who may not even have been bothering to try their best. But I got a kick out of it and then discovered the secret at the end. Um, and this was, this is back in the days of VHS. Laser discs existed, but nobody had them. Um, so the concept of special features wasn't really a thing. But on all of the full moon movies, if you watch the credits, then after the credits at the end of the movie, there was like a 7 to 10 to 20 minute segment of behind the scenes stuff for every fucking movie. And for this one, it was a making of featurette called No Strings Attached, which takes you behind the scenes and meets the actors and the special effects guys and the people doing the rod puppetry and the people doing the stop motion. Like they just show you all of this cool stuff. And this is a movie that is cheap and fast. And so when you look behind the scenes and you see all the stuff they're doing, it's like this is achievable. It sort of democratized the whole concept of movie making. It just showed you something that like it looked like you could do it. And it was really fun. And that was what kept me coming back to Full Moon Entertainment that would then take you behind the scenes and show you how everything was made, show you what they're working on next. As the catalog got deeper, they would show you other stuff. Like they would have a featurette on the guy who designed all of their posters and video box art and how he did the masking and the airbrushing and how all of that stuff worked. It was really fun. And it's something that like everybody does now, but nobody was doing this then. And I was fucking hooked. When this came out, I was 15 when this movie came out. And all the way through high school, I was fully on board. And that was when Full Moon was like just pumping out their content. And they had so much stuff. And I was there for all of it.
It is really fun and it's great production. I forgot about the end of the credits bits. I don't think that happened on the DVD, and I looked for special features, but that might not be available on there, or
I do not remember The Puppet Master one was actually part of a box set that I got. So those might actually have like they might have all of them on a separate disc.
That
I'm
could
not
be
sure.
it.
I know at least some of them are preserved on the DVDs. Today, when I was looking over this movie again, I found on YouTube a playlist that is just all of the full moon video zones in order, and that could be a dangerous rabbit hole to get into. I only watched the one for this movie, and then I made myself stop.
That's good.
There is one last thing we have to say in the movie because there's a little tag at the end. Um, because Dane is dead, so nobody took Leroy away. So at the end of the movie, the survivors, Megan and Alex, say their goodbyes, and Alex leaves. Megan starts walking upstairs. She picks up the stuffed dog, and a couple of flights up, she puts him down, and he runs up the stairs. Because Ted, she brought him to life, man. I think maybe she's the puppet master now.
Was she always the puppet master? Is that why Neil came to life?
She did seem to be a woman with many secrets.
Well, and she's also rich and
The
capable.
character that I think we will never see again.
Probably.
And it will not be part of the lore at all. And no one will ever mention it.
I don't know, Matt, if they keep pumping them out like they have been, and apparently there's about 32 of them based on what you were telling me.
I think there's
Maybe.
about a dozen, maybe 13. The first 5 are sort of the original cycle, and then it went on hiatus. The first 5 were produced during the time that Full Moon had a partnership with Paramount. And after that, they didn't. And their ability to create budgets became significantly smaller, even than these ones. And so there is a distinct drop in quality, um, if you can believe that.
Am I making it up, or is there a doll man versus puppet master?
No, there is a okay. So Puppet Master, Doll Man, and Demonic Toys are 3 properties that Full Moon produces. There is a movie called Doll Man versus Demonic Toys, which crosses over those 2 groups.
Okay, and does that movie start out with Doll Man sleeping in a full-size human kitchen in a kitchen drawer with a girl that is from Earth that is somehow very small now?
Yes, because it's also a sequel to a movie called Bad Channels, which is the movie in which that normal human female got shrunk down to the same size as Doll Man.
Okay.
So it's actually 3 movies crossing over all at once. There is a Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys that was produced outside of the Full Moon universe. I think it was done for like Sci-Fi Channel or something. And it is terrible. Like I say that as someone who loves the regular one. Like it's so bad that I it's not even fun. So, and it has Corey Feldman in it.
All right, I don't need any more of that.
And it's like the puppets and the demonic toys don't even look right. Like it seems very low effort. Uh, like the Puppet Master movies are often inept, but they are trying, and that movie was not even trying.
What
And
a disappointment.
it is not joyful.
Well, and that's the best I can say about this movie is, you know, it was not good. It was very poorly done. It was by and large unpleasant to watch, but it wasn't a shame to watch it. it at least was cute, even if it did give me food poisoning because of all the reasons I've already said, and I do not take that back. It was done bad and left out on the counter for way too long with all the wrong ingredients. But it was cute and entertaining.
I am glad that you found something to enjoy in it. The psychics from this movie contacted the ghost of our brother Ian, and Ian said that you should watch Puppet Master 2.
Oh, that's a hard sell, Matt. I guess we're going to have to do it. If they contacted Ian and Ian said so.
Yeah, I wouldn't lie about something that important.
All right, is that the next one we're going to be watching then?
We'll see. I love you, Ted. Thank you for opening this Pandora's box with me.
I love you too, Matt. I actually had a really good time with it. It's bad. It's all bad. And yes, I'll get over my food poisoning. But if the next one does the same thing, we'll see.
You'll have an immunity now.
I hope that's how it works.
It is when it's about puppets, says my doctor.
I think that you're full of shit.
It's not a good doctor.
Depot Devoid is hosted by Matt Fagan and Ted Fagan. Depot Devoid is not hosted by Ian Fagan because he died, and we miss him. Find us at Depot Devoid Podcast on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all your favorite podcast platforms, or reach us at depotdevoidpodcast@gmail.com.